Hello everybody, this is The Local Lens, a podcast from the Powell County Health Department where we go inside our community's experience with the drug epidemic. Our show is coming to you from Stanton, Kentucky, a small town nestled at the foothills of Appalachia. And the whole point of this show is to share each other's perspectives. Each person that lives in our small town has a unique and individual perspective that is shaped by both their professional roles or their personal lives, and sometimes those even overlap, and this happens to be one of those cases. So in this episode, we are joined by two ladies who have both worked in recovery for several years, but now they are both raising children that are not their own because the children's parents are struggling with addiction. We're going to be getting into some sensitive topics in this episode, so to protect the kids, we decided to keep our guests' identities anonymous. Well, that's good enough for an intro, so let's go on and get into the episode. Once again, this is The Local Lens, a podcast from the Powell County Cares Project at the Powell County Health Department, further sponsored by Kentucky Rio. Anyways, I'm your host, Nate Brooks. This is The Local Lens. These are our people, using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do. All right, let's get into it.
Well, I grew up in Powell County. I have a bachelor's degree in social work, and I've been working in addiction for the last few years. I'm also currently going after my master's degree as well. That's about it for me for now.
Yeah, and I've also lived in Powell County pretty much my whole life, and I also work in addiction recovery. And I am a temporary certified drug and alcohol counselor currently. And so, yeah.
And the reason we have the two of you on the show this week is because you're both knowledgeable about addiction, but you're both also raising children that are not your own because of addiction.
Just a little background story. Just being raised up in Powell County and even just, growing up, we just kind of come from a home life that had some addiction in it growing up, from alcoholism, from our dad and even from our mom at times. And so we were raised in a home where we kind of saw a little bit of that. And it got better over the years, but now currently we have siblings that are kind of struggling with addiction, which kind of brings us to today where we're at with our, having some of our relatives' kids living in our home that we're raising, so.
Well, the kids that we have now, how long have we had them? About 2.5 years?
Yeah, 2.5 years, I believe.
Okay, nice.
And they're doing really well, so.
Mm-hmm. So how did you guys come to get the kids?
So it's kind of not a long story, but basically I have a background in working for social services in my career with having a social work degree. And so it just so happened that a thing happened in our family where I thought, well, we need to call social services. A relative of mine contacted me out of the blue one day on a school day and said, can you come and pick, this child up? Can she spend the night? And I said, well, it's a school day, so kind of what's going on? And there had been an episode where they were under the influence and had been kicked out of their home. So I went and picked her up, but I knew she had a brother, and I didn't know where the brother was. So I decided that we would call social services and get them involved. And it's my niece, so I took my niece home with me, called social services to find out kind of like what's going to happen with both the kids and my nephew. And that's kind of how we ended up with the children. I went and found mom and dad, and they kind of packed a bag of clothes for the kids. At the time, they didn't know social services was involved, and put the kids in the car, packed the clothes, and here we are, and then so we're talking with the DCBS workers and trying to figure out, what it's going to look like moving forward. What's visitation going to look like? What's it going to be like for the kids? And so going into it, we thought it would be a short-term thing. We thought, mom and dad's going to get their act together. They're going to go to treatment. They're going to go to rehab or whatever. They're going to clean themselves up because you know what? They love their kids. They do, without a doubt. Even pictures would show that they did stuff with their children. They have a strong relationship with their kids. But regardless of the fact, addiction took hold and they didn't get their stuff together. And we're 2.5 years down the road and they're still kind of in the same place. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then the social worker went to the school and talked to them both, I think, the day after that. And they've just been pretty much in our care ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of questions. What do you guys think that must have been like for the kids that were going through that. Obviously, where it wasn't the two of you that experienced that yourselves, but you got to witness firsthand how these kids reacted to that.
I think there's a lot of things we don't know that happened. Comments that our niece has made. My nephew's a little bit older, so he doesn't talk about a lot of stuff. He's too cool to talk about it,
Okay.
He's a teenager. But like when he first come to my home, he had a little bitty backpack that only had a few outfits in it. They weren't weather appropriate, and they didn't even fit him anymore. So he had to get all new everything. And his grades were really bad because he was truant. But after he moved in with me, he got a more stable life. And so he didn't miss school anymore, and he had clothes that he needed. He was able to do things he wasn't able to do before. Not because his parents didn't love him. They love their kids. Like she said, addiction just took hold of him. But he's had moments of just having attitude and kind of having a little bit of resentment. I think mainly because his parents aren't there, so he doesn't like rules coming from other people who's not his parents. But we've overcome a lot in 2 years. I mean, it's gotten a lot better. But I know she's had a lot of issues. My niece was a lot younger and took it a lot harder.
Yeah, she was when I got my niece, she was in, I want to say 3rd grade. But part of me wants to say it could have been the end of 2nd grade. I can't remember. Maybe it was the end of 2nd. But so she was pretty little, and when she first got to my home, it was kind of like, cool, I'm spending the night with my cousins, And we lived in a smaller house at the time, so I mean, she was sharing a room with my kids, and the longer she stayed, the more she was like, when am I going to see my mom? When am I going to see my dad? When can I go home? The parents, when they would visit, sometimes would say things to the kids like, well, we're going to get you home soon. And us knowing in the back of our mind, like, that's not happening anytime soon because, they're not doing a lot of things they're supposed to do. So trying to watch a kid not get her hopes up and then moving forward too. So Christmas rolls around. I think actually Halloween rolled around first. Then we had Christmas. We had Thanksgiving. I mean, 3 holidays in a row where, mom and dad were vaguely present. It was hard for her to be at our house on Christmas, without that. I think that was the hardest starting out was you're at our house on Christmas. You're not with your mom and dad. You're opening gifts with us. And, of course, we bought her all kinds of things, but it was just different because, where's mom and dad and the Christmas tree, in my own home with my brother because, I'm not saying we didn't get together, but, these kids are separated in 2 different homes. And that really happened because she has boys in her home and I have all girls in mine. So we thought, we can't keep them. We both can't, either one of us take both of them. So we'll separate them and let them see each other as much as possible. So, yeah.
Do they get to see each other pretty often?
Yeah.
Quite a bit. We're like best friends, so I mean the kids are, and sometimes they're annoyed by seeing each other, so it's worked out.
Well, good. So how did your other children respond to the new child coming into the house?
They were really excited actually because they just look at him as a big brother. My oldest son's kind of used to it because we've also adopted my youngest son because his mother died from a drug overdose when he was just 9 months old. So it's been kind of something. I mean, it's not similar because, my nephew's parents didn't pass away, but he's been in our home for 2.5 years, and they actually just love having him there. I think they get on his nerves because they're littler than he is.
It's a little different story in my home because my niece has now become the baby. And if you know that the babies in the home are the ones who get the attention. So my youngest, my actual youngest is high maintenance. She's ADHD and she's attention seeking all the time. So when my niece come into the home, it kind of caused a little bit of a rift. It was like a fight for attention. So I now have my niece who needs all the attention she can get because mom and dad are absent. But I also have my own children. I have 3 other children, age ranges in, between high school age down to middle school, and now I have my niece who's in elementary school. So, I mean, there's a fight for attention and a fight for, please spend time with me. And they kind of fight like, I don't know, probably like we did when we were younger, like a sibling group. But I can see sometimes the struggle in my own kids, like having that extra kid in the house. And anyway, so it's been a little tough.
I also think it might be a little different because you have all girls and I have all boys, and I love my nieces, but they're a little dramatic sometimes.
Yeah. So, girls are dramatic.
Yeah, I come from a house of boys too, and we never fought. Like, we never even really wrestled or anything. We were just like, we played basketball, we played football together, and like after that we just like boys are easy.
Yeah.
Girls, that's a whole...
No, it's like, don't touch my shirt, don't wear my things, don't... I will say with my niece too, when she come in, there was some tendencies about her that was like, she would hoard things, she would, I don't know, anything that was hers, she would put it all in one place, or she would always have it on her bed. Like, she would sleep with it. It would be her clothing, it would be her toys, it would be anything from mom and dad. And we actually went to some foster care classes in order to move forward, as we went along, and we learned about some of these behaviors with the kids when they're removed. And I started going back home and watching her, and I'm like, she's doing this, I know it's around Easter time, so I can remember one Easter early on when I had her, we went to a community Easter egg hunt, and she went out to get the eggs, and she got like one egg, and it killed her. It was like, I didn't get but one egg. Like, she just shut down. She wouldn't speak. I couldn't get her to talk to me. I mean, it went on. She cried and got really angry and frustrated, all because, she just got that one egg. And I know there was so much more with that. And so, I mean, those are some of the issues that I faced with her, because she's so young. She doesn't really know how to put into words extremely how she feels. So it can come across as stemming up, not talking. It can come across as, writing little notes that says, nobody wants me. I've found notes that says, I just need to run away. This is all my fault. Just little things like that I've had to sit down and have conversations with her about. Like, let's talk about this. And, does this have to do with your mom or dad? Or does this have to do with, what does this have to do with? What can I do to make it better while you're here? And so we can move forward as a family. So, yeah, we've had a huge adjustment period that we're still working through as she gets older too. So,
because if my timeline's lining up right, she's gearing up for middle school.
No, she's actually going into 5th grade.
For both of the kids, are there any groups that they're a part of that like connect them with other kids who have experienced this, or is there anything like that at all?
No, not really. I can't say. I mean, other than, we try to keep them active in the community to keep them busy, such as, playing sports. My niece, we actually put her in basketball, so she loves basketball, and she also is currently taking dance classes. We try to keep them active, and I know my nephew does all kinds of sports. I mean, he's pretty active as well.
Yeah, he's a little bit different, so, I mean, he's really active in that sense, like he's in sports and everything. I don't think he likes to be singled out and made to feel different. And so I don't think he would be accepting to go with, like, I don't think he would feel comfortable being in any type of group or anything like that. So when he was her age, their life was stable and they were being really good parents. He was in school like he was supposed to be. He always made good grades all the way up until like probably about a year before I got him. So his lifestyle was a lot different than hers was. So he doesn't have an IEP. He doesn't have all these issues that she seems to have, because she went through a lot of stuff. I mean, they went through the same stuff, but she did it at a much younger age than he did.
What is an IEP?
It is like a plan that the school has for any kid that's kind of fallen behind, to give them like a treatment plan. Like, all right, you're going to read 100 words.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. It's like individual education program, something like that. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah. That sounds good.
One of them. Cool. We'll go for it. Okay. So that makes sense. I was a teenage boy before myself, and I didn't like anything that put any kind of target, spotlight, any kind of recognition. I didn't like it. And I can you can imagine.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't even really like to talk to me about stuff. We've had some talks, and we'll sit, anytime I see that he might be struggling, we sit and talk about it, but he doesn't really like to. He likes to just try to avoid it. We've also talked to him about therapy, and I've always let him know that that's an option and we can look into that. But he says he doesn't think he needs, and I don't really think he does either, just because he's working through something and I'm there for him. My husband's there for him. He knows he has that option if he needs it. He's a really good kid. He does really well in school. I mean, that's just something hard that he's going through.
Yeah.
And then it may just take like several years and just a lot of personal development and maturing to get to the point where you're even processing like the whole situation and being able to look back on it with clarity. Because right now, like, he's still not very far removed from it. But so you said that up until like a year before you ended up with him, that he was doing good in school then.
Yeah.
So what changed at the home life?
Well, they just started using, so they were bouncing around from place to place. His dad is actually like my half brother, so he has a mom in Ohio, and so there was times that they lived out of state even. So they were bouncing kind of back and forth between like Kentucky and Ohio, and then once they come back to Kentucky, they were kind of bouncing around from like friends' homes, and I think just the instability of it, you know, they didn't have any stable housing. I think part of the reason why my niece might have hoarded her stuff and kind of kept it together and slept with it is because they lost their stuff so many times whenever they would have to move from home to home. So she was used to...
Or people taking their things too, like depending on who they were living with at the time. And, you know, so-and-so took this or so-and-so took that. Or I think the last home they lived in before we got them was, you know, considered a place where a lot of people did drugs. And so they kind of all shared a bedroom. They all shared a certain space. And so everything was kind of all together, like she said. And I think that was really part of the reason he started struggling too, is because they never really had their own home. They always lived with people, you know, and there was always people coming in and out. I mean, they did early on, but like the last little bit, like they always kind of lived with multiple people. And I know their parents would kind of make it out like these people were, you know, this is Uncle so-and-so or this is Aunt so-and-so. And these are people that were not related to the kids. Like my niece would say, my mom told me that Uncle so-and-so, you know, passed away or something. You know, and this would be conversations during visits where they would tell their kids stuff that the kids didn't need to know. You know, like at age 8, she probably didn't know that Uncle so-and-so, you know, died of a suicide or whatever. Because that happened. A friend of theirs had passed away, and it was like the mom had a conversation with the kid about it. And I'm like, they don't know how to parent. They were best friends with these kids, and when you remove your best friend out of your life, in his case, because he was older, Dad's my best friend. Dad talks to me like an adult. He tells me adult information. Like I can remember them telling him, all your stuff got threw out on the road and the police had to come and that's why we can't get your school stuff. And he didn't need to know that, you know. So we kind of had to deal with some of that as well. Like we were picking up the aftermath of these visitations with kids and talking to you about what mom and dad are actually saying. But this is kind of, you know, and how to protect the kids' ears from hearing things they shouldn't hear and trying to, without causing any type of family drama, address this stuff. It was really difficult.
But also you don't want resentment from the kids either.
Right.
So it's not like you want to go talk to their parents, you know, right in front of them.
Yeah, during a visit, which would be the only time we would see them, basically.
Yeah.
So do you guys see yourselves as some kind of a buffer for the kids, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, sort of, I guess. We're kind of in the middle, you know, between them and trying to protect them and also trying to, you know, it's family. So it's trying to help family too. Because, you know, they're always going to be there. It ain't like they're going to ever separate. So there's always going to be this in and out in the kid's life from the parent. So what do we do to combat, you know, any type of trauma? And that's something we've discussed. Like, do we cut the visits off because we know that they're using? Or if they look like they're sober, do we let the visit go on? Or, you know, it's going to be more harm for the kid if they don't see their parent for a long time. What if their parent overdoses and dies and they never see them again? Like, these are conversations that we've had about, you know, because we've had our own resentment. Well, they haven't called in 3 months, so maybe we should not let them visit this time because they want to. But you know what? Truth be told, if we're supervising it and they're acting normal, then we should let it happen regardless. And that's what we do, and it's so difficult, you know, because we know behaviors might be coming afterwards, you know. But.
So you mentioned earlier that you were doing classes for foster care. Yeah. Do you yourselves be a part of any groups like that together? That any other kind of support group that you guys can talk to?
So I actually got me and my husband were certified as a foster home just like a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually offer support groups. They offer other foster parents that have been doing it for a lot of years. They'll pair them up with new foster parents.
Okay.
If you want to reach out to anybody, I haven't, but it is an option.
It is there. If
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Which is, it's cool too because you two have each other to, you guys seem pretty tied together. It seems like a communal effort for it.
Yeah, we usually call each other and gripe about things.
Let me
about
tell you
like
what has happened. Yeah. That's what that group is too, is to have an outlet and a safe place to say, this is what this kid's doing, like, how'd you deal with it? But I think for us too, because, you know, she has a background in working with foster homes, and I also worked in social services in foster home and foster care. It's kind of like, I feel like I should know this stuff, but you just don't. This is the other side of the fence. Like, I didn't know the behaviors that these kids could, you know, show or do, and how to deal with that. I've just kind of been learning, and education-wise, you know, the background in social work, just kind of been utilizing a lot of those skills with this child, you know, and really just loving them. Really, that's all, just loving them.
That's the main thing, I think.
Yeah.
And just trying to make them feel normal. As normal as they can. It's never going to feel normal for them because they love their parents, and no matter how good they're doing now or all the things we provide, we're still not mom and dad. So I think that's hard sometimes, like when I'm going to ball games and I'm just like, I know how much he would love if his parents were actually there watching. It just kind of hurts me for him. Like even when he doesn't say anything, I know it has to bug him.
Yeah, and I think with the parents' side, you know, when they contact us and they tell us that they're doing this or they're doing that, you know, and in the back of our minds, like, I want to believe this to be true, but at the same time, I'm seeing, like, very little effort. That's another thing with their parents is we've offered them help in so many, you know, in so many different ways. Like, even just throwing it out there, like, this is what's going to happen moving forward, that, you know, we're probably going to end up adopting your kids. Like, we're getting to the point in court where you're going to have no option, but your rights are going to be terminated. Like, they know, like, we've told them this. And in love, and saying, I can help you. Like, we both work in addiction services. Like, if you need to go to rehab, we will help you get to rehab. You know, whatever it is. And either getting a cold shoulder or saying, okay, yeah, but I'm looking for a house. I'm doing, you know. And it just really shows you, like, the toll that addiction has on a person. That even when help is offered, that it can take you to a place where it's like they try to do it on their own. Like, they can just do it on their own, but even 2 and 3 years down the road, still thinking they could do it on their own, even though they're losing everything, and still trying to get it together. And it's really hard to watch that, you know, as a relative. So
kind of down that road in dealing with the court, in that, is the court's role there to, what exactly is the court's role? Does it feel like it's to truly keep the kids safe and protected?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in this county, as far as, you know, removing a parental right of a child or whatever, or parental right to a child, this court has been pretty lenient with them because, like I said, we're 2.5 years in, and the children's goal has not been changed to adoption yet. It's still return to parent.
The goal is to return to
parent.
Okay.
Yeah, still.
Okay.
So that's just saying they've had all this time. The judge continues, even though they've not showed up to maybe 1 or 2 court dates in 2 years, the judge pushes it and pushes it and pushes it. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but this is just showing you how much time they've had to get it together. Like, okay, he's giving you another option. And there's been, you know, I think one of them went to rehab one time.
Well,
and
another one went one time as well, but didn't finish, and then another one finished like phase 1. There has been times that they've tried, and I think that all that really shows is just, like she said, how bad addiction does take a hold of somebody, just because they do love their kids, and I know they do want them back, and it's like they just can't break from it.
What are some of the things that, like, show you two that the parents do still love the kids and still are invested in that?
So we're supposed to have visits every week. They don't show up a lot of the times, but they do show up sometimes. And just the interaction they have when they're with their kids. They are hugging them. They tell them they love them. They always try to bring them stuff, even if it's little stuff. They always try to show them that they care when they come around. I think a lot of the reason why they don't come around is because of shame and guilt, honestly. I think they know they're using, and they know they're in the wrong, so they don't want to come around us because they know we work in addiction. They know we know about it. And so I think a lot of the reason why they don't come around is shame and guilt of how they're doing. When really we would just try to help them anyways if they came.
Yeah. Even with Dad, he would tell us, like, I know I need to do better. I'm struggling with depression, and, I'm trying to get on my feet, and, I really, I'm going to get away from her because, we're toxic, and I'm going to try to get myself together. And then if you talk to her, it's like, she stays away, like she said, because of guilt and shame. Like, she stays away. She feels like she needs to go get it all together and then come around the kids. But in doing that, she harms them because she's gone for 3 or 4 months and then pops up out of the blue. And I notice she doesn't like to look me in the eyes. She doesn't like to really have long conversations with me about any really thing that she's doing. Or she'll say things like, I'm working on this, trying to tell me everything she's working towards that is still, up in the air. Mm-hmm. So it's a real big guilt thing, and we try to make them feel as comfortable as possible,
I will say there has been times that the parents have tried, especially when it first happened. I think they really were putting in a solid effort. They were doing some of the classes they were supposed to do. They were calling the worker. They had actually got a place, and then it fell through. And it seemed like once that happened and it fell through, they turned back to what they knew. Yeah. Kind of like they couldn't deal with things falling apart on them. And that seems to be when they go on binges and kind of disappear for a month. It's kind of, especially around holidays.
Oh, yeah.
They take holidays pretty rough, I think, because that's when you can kind of see they're doing worse.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
If there's any one particular group of people you want to address, through your experiences, if you have anything to tell any specific group of people, what would it be?
I guess for me it would be like parents that aren't raising their kids right now due to their addiction. Is just to not give up hope, because I think that's a lot of the problem with them is they give up on themselves and they lose hope just because it seems so overwhelming. But there's resources out there. There's people that will help you. And your kids love you no matter what. They don't care that, you've been messing up for the last year and a half. If you get your life together and come back in their life, they're going to love you just the same. And I think just don't give up. Don't lose hope, and reach out for the help that you need, because it's there.
And I would probably just address any people that are raising children that are not their own. And even if it's family, that the best thing that you could do for a kid is to love that kid. Love them when they're mad, love them when they're sad, love them when they're, tearing stuff up in the house. Just love them, because it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the trauma that they experienced coming into the home due to addiction. But love will cover it. Like, if they can feel accepted, it's not going to take away what's absent in their life, but it will definitely help them heal and move forward in life. So,
well, that's all the time that we have today. I think my biggest takeaway from the whole conversation was what she said there at the end, was that you have to be who the other person needs you to be. I think that's a good rule of thumb to apply to pretty much any relationship in our lives, especially ones that are as fragile as ones that have been affected by addiction. Anyways, thank you so much to our 2 guests for being on the show and for being so honest with us. Also, thank you to WSKV for broadcasting the show, and thanks to the health department for letting there be a show. This is The Local Lens. Thank you guys for tuning in, and keep on coming back. These are our people using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.